When we talk about purpose, we're not just speaking about some vague philosophical idea. Purpose is quite literally wired into our nervous system. It determines our dopamine release, our ability to sustain effort, and our resilience in the face of setbacks. Without a sense of purpose, the brain struggles to organize behavior toward long-term goals. But when we identify and align with it, our entire physiology, our focus, our energy, even our sense of meaning begins to shift. Today, we're going to explore not just why finding purpose matters, but how you can systematically discover it, cultivate it, and use it as the engine for everything you do. Purpose regulates dopamine and long-term motivation in ways that most people underestimate. When we talk about dopamine, many assume it is simply the molecule of pleasure, something that spikes when we experience enjoyment, reward, or novelty. But in reality, dopamine is far more important for motivation than for pleasure. It is the chemical signal that keeps us moving forward, that allows us to pursue goals across days, weeks, months, and even years. Without sufficient dopamine, our ability to maintain effort diminishes, and even tasks we care about deeply start to feel overwhelming or unmanageable. Purpose is the lever that regulates this system. When you establish a clear sense of why you are doing something, dopamine release becomes more consistent and sustainable. It is no longer about chasing a short-term reward, but about engaging in a process that is meaningful on a deeper level. Consider how the brain works when a person has no sense of purpose. Tasks feel disconnected, energy feels scattered, and small obstacles can trigger disengagement. The nervous system is wired to conserve energy when there is no clear long-term target. Without an overarching purpose, the brain has little reason to generate the dopamine required for persistence. This is why people often feel stuck, fatigued, or unmotivated when they lack clarity about their direction. The problem isn't laziness. It is neurobiology responding appropriately to a lack of meaningful input. Now imagine the opposite scenario. When you set a purpose that resonates, the brain perceives every action, no matter how small, as a step towards something bigger. Dopamine doesn't just spike at the end when the goal is achieved. It is released along the way, reinforcing the effort itself. This is why individuals who are clear on their purpose often seem to have boundless energy, even in the face of difficulties. Their dopamine system is tuned not to short-term rewards, but to the pursuit of something personally significant. They are able to sustain long hours, endure stress, and maintain focus because the neurochemical machinery of motivation is aligned with their chosen path. Scientific studies on long-term effort and goal pursuit consistently show that people who tie their actions to a broader meaning or identity not only stick with tasks longer, but also recover from setbacks more quickly. Dopamine plays a central role in this resilience. It helps the brain reframe failure as part of a larger process rather than as a final outcome. In this way, purpose transforms the same chemical system that drives craving and distraction into a system that supports persistence and growth. Think about athletes who train for years to reach peak performance, or scientists who dedicate decades to a single line of research. The daily grind they endure is not glamorous, and the short-term rewards are often minimal. What sustains them is a deep connection to purpose. Every workout, every experiment, every late night feels worth it because their brain interprets it as progress towards something that matters. Dopamine release is steady, consistent, and reinforcing because it is anchored to purpose. This mechanism also explains why purpose has such a profound effect on mental health. Depression, burnout, and chronic fatigue are often associated with dysregulated dopamine. Without purpose, the brain fails to organize energy toward meaningful goals, leading to feelings of emptiness or hopelessness. By contrast, when someone identifies and commits to a purpose, their biology shifts. Their nervous system allocates energy more efficiently, their motivation stabilizes, and even stressful challenges become tolerable because they are framed as part of a larger mission. Purpose, then, is not just a psychological concept, but a biological necessity. It calibrates the dopamine system in a way that allows human beings to engage in long-term, effortful pursuit. It transforms the chemistry of motivation from something fleeting into something sustainable, giving individuals the capacity to keep moving forward regardless of obstacles or delays. It is the key to unlocking consistency, resilience, and lasting drive. Clear goals organize brain and behavior toward action in a way that transforms scattered energy into directed momentum. The human brain is constantly processing an enormous amount of information, sensory input, emotional states, memories, and future predictions. Without structure, this activity remains unfocused and chaotic, leading to procrastination, distraction, and wasted effort. But when a clear goal is defined, the brain begins to filter out irrelevant noise and align its resources toward the pursuit of that objective. Neural circuits in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning and decision-making, become more active, and the communication between this area and the motivational centers of the brain strengthens. This alignment creates coherence between thought, emotion, and action, making it possible to engage consistently in behaviors that bring us closer to the desired outcome. Clarity of goals also reduces cognitive load. When someone is uncertain about what they are trying to achieve, the brain burns a tremendous amount of energy switching between options and second-guessing decisions. This constant indecision drains mental resources, leaving people exhausted even when little has been accomplished. On the other hand, when a goal is clearly defined, the brain can automate decisions and free up energy for action. For example, if your goal is to run a marathon, you don't wake up every morning asking yourself whether you should train. You simply follow the plan that aligns with that goal. The reduction in decision fatigue allows effort to flow more smoothly, and the mind is liberated from the constant friction of uncertainty. Another powerful effect of clear goals is the way they activate the reward system. The brain releases dopamine not only when a goal is achieved, but also when progress is made toward it. By setting a clear goal, you give your nervous system a framework to register progress and generate reinforcement. Each step becomes meaningful, and even small achievements carry weight because they are recognized as part of a larger trajectory. Without a clear goal, progress is invisible, and the brain has no reason to sustain motivation. This is why vague intentions like "I want to be healthier" rarely lead to consistent change, while specific goals such as "I will exercise for 30 minutes 5 times per week" create measurable progress that the brain can reward. Clarity also enhances resilience to setbacks. When goals are vague, obstacles feel like failures because there is no roadmap to contextualize them. But with a clearly defined goal, challenges can be reframed as temporary detours rather than dead ends. The brain interprets them as part of the process and continues to organize behavior around the larger aim. This resilience comes from the way goals anchor attention. Instead of focusing on the discomfort of a setback, the mind remains oriented toward the outcome, and behavior continues to align with that vision. Importantly, clear goals influence not just mental states, but also physiological responses. Research has shown that the body mobilizes energy differently when it perceives actions as purposeful and directed. Heart rate, breathing, and even hormonal responses become optimized for sustained effort. In this sense, clear goals act as a signal to the entire body that energy should be allocated towards specific tasks. This is why athletes, entrepreneurs, or anyone striving for excellence place such emphasis on goal setting. It primes both brain and body to operate in unison. The clarity of a goal also shapes identity. When you define what you are aiming for, your sense of self begins to shift around that pursuit. The brain builds associations between your identity and the behaviors required to achieve the goal. Over time, this creates automaticity. Your actions align with the goal not just because you are consciously choosing them, but because they feel like expressions of who you are becoming. This reduces friction and increases consistency, making long-term achievement more likely. In this way, clear goals are not just motivational tools but biological organizers. They direct neural activity, reduce decision fatigue, activate the reward system, build resilience, optimize physiology, and reshape identity. They transform the abstract desire for change into structured action, allowing the brain and body to operate with precision and persistence. When goals are clear, behavior follows naturally, and the path forward becomes far more attainable. Stress becomes fuel when aligned with meaningful pursuit because the way the body and brain interpret stress is not fixed but highly dependent on context. Stress is often seen as purely negative, something that drains energy, disrupts focus, and weakens resilience. But when stress is connected to a purpose or a goal that matters deeply, the biological response changes. The same adrenaline, cortisol, and heightened alertness that might otherwise feel overwhelming can be harnessed as powerful energy sources. The nervous system is designed to mobilize resources under pressure, and when that pressure is directed towards something meaningful, it becomes a tool for progress rather than an obstacle. At the core of this lies perception. Stress is not only about what happens in the body, but also how the mind interprets it. If someone experiences rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, and tension in their muscles during a meaningless task, those sensations are labeled as anxiety and frustration. But in the context of pursuing a valued goal, whether running toward a finish line, delivering an important presentation, or caring for a loved one, those same sensations are experienced as readiness and drive. The physiology is the same. The difference is whether the stress is linked to something purposeful. Purpose provides the framework that transforms the uncomfortable into the useful. This is supported by research in psychology and neuroscience, showing that stress linked with meaningful effort releases not only cortisol but also dopamine. That combination changes everything. While cortisol alone can leave someone feeling depleted, the presence of dopamine gives the brain a sense of reward, signaling that the effort is worthwhile. This is why people can endure extreme challenges, military training, academic pressure, or personal struggles when they believe in the importance of the outcome. The stress doesn't disappear, but it becomes integrated into the pursuit, providing bursts of energy, sharpening focus, and reinforcing persistence. Athletes are a clear example of this dynamic. Training at a high level involves stress on the body, micro-injuries to muscles, and repeated exposure to exhaustion. Without a larger purpose, these sensations would feel like punishment, but athletes connect them to a vision of competition, achievement, or personal growth. The discomfort becomes fuel, and the stress signals are interpreted as signs of adaptation and progress. The same principle applies beyond sports. A student preparing for difficult exams, an entrepreneur building a company, or a parent working to support their family all face stress. When tied to meaning, those stress responses become sources of focus and endurance. It is also important to understand that stress, when aligned with purpose, strengthens resilience over time. Each episode of meaningful stress teaches the nervous system how to recover more efficiently. This process is known as stress inoculation. Instead of breaking down under pressure, the body learns to adapt, expanding its capacity to handle future challenges. Purpose acts as the guide in this process, making it clear why the stress is worth enduring and embedding each challenge within a broader narrative of growth. This prevents the hopelessness that often accompanies chronic stress without direction. The framing of stress as fuel also enhances mental toughness. When people believe that their stress is harmful, they tend to avoid situations that trigger it, leading to stagnation. But when they reframe stress as a natural part of purposeful pursuit, they embrace it. This mindset shift reduces fear, increases tolerance for discomfort, and fosters persistence. The brain begins to recognize stress not as a threat, but as a companion to meaningful effort. Over time, this reprograms the association between challenge and growth, making individuals more likely to take on ambitious goals. Ultimately, stress in itself is neither good nor bad. It is neutral energy waiting to be assigned meaning. When aligned with trivial or meaningless tasks, it erodes motivation and drains vitality. But when linked to purpose, it becomes a renewable source of drive. The body interprets the same signals differently, and the brain integrates stress into a feedback loop that sustains effort and sharpens focus. Stress in this context is not the enemy but the engine, transforming pressure into power when guided by the compass of meaningful pursuit. Self-reflection plus deliberate practice reveals direction because the process of discovering purpose is not something that happens all at once or through a sudden moment of clarity. Instead, it is built over time by combining introspection with consistent effort. Self-reflection allows us to examine our inner landscape, our values, strengths, interests, and fears, while deliberate practice exposes us to real experiences that test and refine those insights. When these two processes work together, they form a loop that steadily sharpens our sense of where we are meant to go. Reflection without action often leads to overthinking, while practice without reflection can become mindless repetition. But the combination of both creates alignment between who we are and what we pursue. Self-reflection is the starting point because it creates awareness. The brain is constantly shaping behavior based on unconscious drives, habits, and social conditioning. Without reflection, we can spend years chasing goals that don't truly belong to us, following expectations set by others rather than our authentic interests. By pausing to ask meaningful questions, what energizes me? What do I avoid? What do I find myself returning to again and again? We surface patterns that reveal our intrinsic motivations. Neuroscience shows that when we reflect in this way, areas of the brain involved in self-referential thinking and long-term planning become active, creating connections between past experiences and possible futures. This inner dialogue sets the stage for clarity, but it cannot provide all the answers on its own. That is where deliberate practice enters the equation. It is not enough to imagine what might bring us purpose. We need to test those ideas in the real world. Purpose is discovered through action, through exposing ourselves to challenges, skills, and experiences that provide feedback about what feels meaningful. Deliberate practice is not random effort, but structured engagement designed to stretch our abilities just beyond our comfort zone. Each attempt provides data. What excites us, what frustrates us, what feels worth repeating. Over time, these small tests form a map, pointing us toward areas where effort and meaning overlap. The combination of reflection and practice is powerful because it closes the gap between theory and reality. For example, someone might reflect and realize they value helping others, but it is only through practicing different forms of service, teaching, mentoring, volunteering, or caregiving, that they begin to see where their skills align with their values most effectively. Each attempt becomes a mirror showing not only what they are good at, but also what sustains their energy. Reflection guides practice, and practice refines reflection. This back and forth process gradually narrows the field until direction emerges with increasing clarity. This approach also builds resilience against failure. When we think of purpose as something we should already know, failure feels like a sign that we are lost or incapable. But when we view purpose as something revealed through cycles of reflection and practice, failure becomes feedback rather than defeat. Every setback is information, a clue about what works and what doesn't. This transforms the journey from a search for perfection into an iterative process of learning and discovery. The nervous system thrives under this model because the brain responds positively to small wins, adjustments, and progress, all of which are built into the cycle. Over time, self-reflection and deliberate practice also shape identity. The more we reflect on what matters and practice aligning our actions with it, the more we begin to see ourselves as the kind of person who pursues meaningful goals. This strengthens motivation and makes purposeful behavior more automatic. The identity shift provides stability, anchoring our choices and behaviors in a clear sense of self. We no longer feel as though we are wandering without direction, but instead recognize that every action, even the small ones, is part of a larger trajectory. Purpose emerges through doing, but it is sharpened through thinking. It is not discovered in isolation, nor handed down fully formed. It is cultivated through the interplay of inner clarity and outer effort. Self-reflection provides the compass, deliberate practice provides the path, and together they reveal direction that becomes clearer with each step. Purpose is not found once. It's built and refined over time because meaning in life is not a fixed discovery waiting somewhere outside of us, but it dynamic process that grows as we do. Many people imagine purpose as a sudden revelation, a moment when everything becomes clear and they know exactly what they are meant to do. In reality, purpose evolves through experiences, choices, and adaptations. What feels meaningful at one stage of life may shift as we encounter new challenges, gain new skills, or change perspectives. This doesn't mean that purpose is fragile or unstable, but rather that it is alive, continuously shaped by the interaction between our inner world and the outer environment. Treating purpose as something that must be perfectly identified once and for all often leads to frustration, while recognizing it as something that is built allows us to engage in the process more fully and patiently. From a biological perspective, this makes sense. The human brain is not static. It is highly plastic, meaning its wiring and patterns of activity change with learning and experience. The circuits that regulate motivation, decision making, and reward are continuously updated. As we pursue goals and face challenges, our nervous system adapts, creating new connections and reinforcing different pathways. Because of this, what we find purposeful is not locked in place but grows along with the development of our brain and body. Early in life, exploration and experimentation often feel purposeful because they help us learn who we are. Later, mastery, contribution, or legacy may feel more purposeful because they align with our accumulated knowledge and our desire to impact others. Purpose expands and deepens across time, and this growth is part of its strength. This evolving nature of purpose also protects against stagnation. If purpose were fixed, it would lose its vitality once achieved. Imagine if someone discovered their purpose at 20 and nothing ever changed. Their life would quickly feel repetitive and empty. Instead, the fact that purpose is refined means that every achievement leads to new horizons. Accomplishing one meaningful goal doesn't end the pursuit but opens the door to the next layer. A musician may begin with the purpose of mastering their instrument, later shift to creating art that moves others, and eventually find purpose in teaching the next generation. Each stage builds upon the last, weaving a richer and more nuanced sense of meaning. The refinement of purpose also comes from setbacks and challenges. Failures often force us to question what we value and why. In those moments, we are pushed to re-examine our goals and adjust our path. Rather than being a sign that purpose has been lost, these recalibrations are evidence that purpose is alive and flexible. Neuroscience shows that the brain learns most deeply when prediction errors occur, when reality does not match expectation. These moments of friction sharpen our awareness and push us to refine our aims. Over time, this process ensures that our purpose is not just an abstract idea but a lived truth, tested and strengthened by real-world experience. Another key element in the building of purpose is contribution. Early on, many people search for purpose in personal achievement, but over time, purpose often shifts toward connection with others. Relationships, community, and impact add depth to meaning because they link our efforts to something larger than ourselves. This expansion of perspective reflects the growth of empathy, wisdom, and long-term vision. It demonstrates again that purpose is not a static possession but an evolving orientation shaped by both individual growth and social context. Ultimately, the belief that purpose must be discovered once and never altered creates unnecessary pressure and disappointment. Recognizing that purpose is built gradually allows us to approach life with curiosity rather than anxiety. Each experience, whether joyful or painful, becomes part of the construction. Each adjustment adds precision. Each reflection deepens clarity. Purpose is less a treasure to be unearthed and more a structure we are constantly building, layer by layer, choice by choice, season by season. It is this ongoing refinement that gives it resilience, richness, and the ability to guide us for a lifetime.